Hi, I'm Richard Tang, CEO of Zen Internet. Welcome back. I'm continuing my series of interviews with the industry's movers and shakers, today with Rajiv Datta, who is the CEO of Nexfibre. Rajiv, a very warm welcome to Rochdale and a very warm welcome to Zen.
Thank you, Richard. Happy to be here.
Right, great. Nexfibre, let's start off with Nexfibre, a bit of an unusual altnet. My first question is, why did the investors who invested in VMO2 set up this separate joint venture? I know that VMO2 have got this massive upgrade program to full fibre. Why didn't they just continue to build as VMO2? Why does Nexfibre exist? Why are you here?
Thank you, Richard. Well, let's back up. So Nexfibre has three shareholders, three investors. As you pointed out, half of Nexfibre is owned by the combination of owners that own VMO2 and Liberty Global and Telefonica. The other half, crucially, is owned by Infravia Capital Partners, which is a world-class infrastructure investor in this space. And fundamentally, Nexfibre exists in order to create a national platform that will compete on a wholesale basis with Openreach, to have a genuine alternative infrastructure platform that incorporates the 5 million homes that we're going to build on a greenfield basis, but also to leverage the 17 million homes that Virgin Media O2 will bring and are in the process of upgrading to create a genuine competitor in the marketplace. That's the core purpose and the objective. Now, obviously, to your question, the building full fiber networks is a capital-intensive business, so clearly the need to raise capital and to build that capability is something that is over and above any other things that VMO2 has going on, and as you know, they're going through many other significant infrastructure projects. But the fundamental purpose here is to bring and to create that national scale platform to compete with Openreach. That's our purpose.
Okay, so the end goal will be 17 million full fibre on VMO2, 5 million on Nexfibre, so 22 million at least. I know you've got an option to do another 2 million as well on Nexfibre. And I guess that means that the Nexfibre build, I'm assuming that the VMO2 build is going to be more urban, in the towns, in the cities. So the Nexfibre is, I've got in mind, it's filling in the sort of semi-rural, rural gaps. Is that right? Or am I barking up the wrong tree there?
Well, what is absolutely right is that Nexfibre is focused on building greenfield network in places where VMO2 does not currently have footprint. And the rationale for that is not just because of our common ownership. The rationale for that is VMO2 is our anchor tenant customer. The one element that I think all the other altnets do not have, which is a core, fundamental, foundational part of penetration, of customer penetration, that we can build our business case on top of. So we're definitely building in places where VMO2 don't currently have presence. I'm not sure I would describe that as rural. I think we live in the semi-urban to semi-rural sort of band of the marketplace. We're not as rural as some rural specialist fiber builders today who are known, I think, in the marketplace. But clearly, the existing VMO2 footprint is slanted towards urban areas. So we're sort of in that semi-urban to semi-rural space, in my view.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. In this industry, in the altnet world, size matters. You've got an ambition of 5 million premises passed. Where are you today?
So as you said, we are on track to hitting 5 million by the end of 2026. If you think about that in the context of when the company was founded, which is 12 months ago, that's probably one of the fastest build cycles of our competitors in this marketplace. We announced that we hit 500,000 homes passed at the end of September. And I think it probably caused people to take notice as to that speaks to the sort of the pace at which we're building. The build engine has been accelerating since then. And I mean, there's so many articles these days about pauses in builds and people who are slowing down build. We have been accelerating build through this time. We will announce early in this year sort of passing 1 million homes. And I think next week we're going to be providing an update on our build sort of plans that we've been publishing as of last quarter that will sort of articulate exactly where we are in terms of the numbers for the end of the year. But the numbers have been accelerating. What I would say that based on all of the public discussions and announcements I've heard, Nexfibre will build more homes in 2024 than any altnet in the marketplace.
Wow. Throws down the gauntlet to any altnet watching this. And what about the buy versus build question? Because you did acquire Up back in September. That added, I think, 175,000 homes. And certainly talking to City Fibre, they've got this sort of combination of build and buy. And if you're going to get to 5 million by the end of 2026, that's still 4 and a bit million to build in just less than 3 years, or build and acquire. And what can you tell me about the balance between getting to the 5 million by doing more build versus buying up other altnets?
So I would say that our fundamental plan is an organic plan. Our plan to build 5 million homes is a fully articulated and backed plan of build. However, clearly, if there are opportunities to accelerate that plan or to extend our addressable market by looking at other geographies where someone has built and there's a financial logic to making an acquisition, we're very eager to do that. I'm sure we'll get into the consolidation piece of the market, but clearly the market is in a place where there are a number of fiber builders, a number of assets that find themselves perhaps not where they planned to be or intended to be with their investors. And I think Nexfibre is a natural home for some of those assets, given our ambition and our context with our shareholders and our anchor tenant customer, for them to find a place to leverage and monetize the assets that they have. Up is a great example of us doing that, right? It was a geographically distinct part of the build. We look carefully at overlap and overbuild, and not only to us, but to our anchor tenant customer, because we want to make sure that we are adding value to that base business plan that we have. And like I said, in the case of Up, that made absolute sense. We believe that there are other targets and other assets out there that make equivalent sense, if not better sense, as we progress, and we intend to be active in that space.
Yeah. Okay. Can you share your current build rate? I mean, I guess if you've done somewhat over 500,000 to date in 12-ish months, so it must be 40, 50,000. But if you're accelerating, it must be faster than that. I mean, I'm guessing. Can you share the exact, or is that
Richard, we
confidential?
We haven't really been sharing the exact numbers, but I would say that our 500,000 homes passed was approximately 9 months after the founding of the company. So it includes any ramp up, etc. So you can imagine that the pace at which we're building is materially faster than that at this point. But like I said, unless I've missed an announcement, I think we will be building the most homes in 2024 relative to any altnet, certainly second only to Openreach.
Right. Okay. It's all very well having a big network, but what all the altnets want are paying customers.
Yep.
I know that when you announced the acquisition of Up, they had about 4,000 customers on the network. I mean, is that something that you can share, the number of customers currently on your footprint?
So what I would say, Richard, is the one place where I think all of the altnets have transitioned is from a focus on homes passed, which has been sort of the drumbeat of the market, of the industry over the last number of years, to homes connected. As we were talking earlier, I think homes connected is an interim stop on the real discussion, which is ARPU. We have to focus on what price and what sustainable pricing there is in the marketplace for the homes that are connected. We are deeply focused on this point. And one of the recurring themes you'll hear from me is the reason Nexfibre is so different is not just the fact that we have $4.5 billion of committed financing, including equity and debt, or that we have these great strategic investors. But what sets us apart is we also have this incredible anchor tenant customer that has significant share of the market that we can bring and drive that penetration onto the network. That is a crucial differentiation and a crucial part of the business plan. So as I said, we ramped up last year. Last year was a build year and just trying to get the build machine ramped up. I would say that the cohort view we have of penetration is tracking per the plan. So we're seeing penetration. We haven't really announced specific numbers, but we're seeing penetration as we would expect. And it continues to be a key focus for us as we progress.
Yeah. Let's talk about ARPU, because that's one thing that you see a lot in the altnet world is, yes, that feedback that it's all very well building networks and the focus has shifted onto getting customers on the network. Some of the altnets seem to be so keen to get customers on their network that the prices that they're offering in the market seem like really, really low. Now, when I've asked them, is that sustainable? Can you actually make a profit at, let's say £25 a month, including VAT, for a gigabit with 3 months free? Very, very aggressive. I mean, what's your view of the market overall and whether those aggressive prices are sustainable? I mean, from a Nexfibre point of view, or whether actually those are more land grab with the idea that over time, the customers will get a bit of a price hike to something that makes sense for the altnets.
So, there are two parts to ARPU, at least in our world, right? There's the infrastructure component, there's the retail ISP component. For many altnets, they combine those two and conflate what I would call are two fundamentally different business models. I think if you speak with anyone who runs an altnet that has both a retail and wholesale ISP component, they will speak to the fact that they need a compelling event to drive customers onto the network, and they start with price, and that eventually over time they expect that they will be able to walk customers up once they see the value. Of course, that's a story that I'm sure is part true in terms of customer acquisition costs and getting customers on. But I think the view that you can offer prices like that over the long run and still pay back on core infrastructure investments that are capital intensive is a view that has played out over and over again in this industry over many years, and it typically has not worked out. But I think we're in this part of the market, part of the trajectory where we've gone from investors really focusing on build to investors really focusing on how many customers are connected. And as I said, you can buy yourself some time by getting customers connected and convince yourself of that model working until you look at how that ARPU trajectory continues to grow. And if it doesn't grow, you start having a different type of problem in terms of your debt levels, your revenue levels, and your ability to pay back. So I think it's a little bit of a difficult dance to perfect. And I'm certain that there's some price points out there that are not genuinely sustainable over a long run.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk about build, because I know that you are leaning heavily on VMO2's build machine. Do you use VMO2's build machine exclusively? And I guess one question is, thinking about the experiences of some of the other altnets, they have had issues with various build partners. I mean, they've slowed down build, they've had quality issues. Yep. I'd be interested is, with the benefit of VMO2's backing, is that something that also affects you, or are you largely immune to that?
So as you said, I mean, we're leveraging VMO2's build engine and build expertise to help us manage build. Let's remember, in the end, the actual build is being done by partners, contractors in the local markets who understand those geographies best. I have to say, we're really proud of the partnership we have with VMO2 on this, and there's no way Nexfibre would have been able to scale as we are continuing to scale without that expertise and that capability. So I would say it's a very strong partnership on that end. Are there challenges in build? I mean, anyone who's ever built a network of any scale will know that there are challenges every day. That's the nature of the beast, whether it's blocked PIA, whether it's weather events, partners that have challenges. I mean, the gamut. So I don't think we're immune to any of that. What I do think is important for us, and I think we've seen varying different levels of quality control, I would argue, within this market, is we have pretty robust set of QA sort of processes within VM. We have our own Nexfibre quality assurance processes that leverage and review the build. we are focused on building something that is going to last for a long time. So not just from a technological perspective, we're XGS PON, 10 gig symmetrical, day one. We don't have any other technology in the entire network. We have all of these technological capabilities, but we're also focused on building a world-class, long-lived infrastructure for the future. So that comes into build quality as well. And VMO2 and their build capability is part of that story.
And the approach to build, PIA versus doing your own civils and digging up the road. I mean, you see different approaches from different altnets. Some do a lot more digging than others.
Yeah. So ours is a mix. We use PIA for sure, but we also have self-build that we build ourselves. And I think you'll see this in the build plans that people talk about and how they build their network. There is a build strategy that just looks to building at the lowest possible cost. They'll only build where PI is easily available. They will typically cover 20% of a town or 25% of a town. They may not give you complete coverage. Our approach is a little bit different. We're going after key areas, key towns. We leverage PI where it makes sense. Where we need to self-build, we add that in so that we can build an entire contiguous geography as opposed to just cherry picking a few. You'll be on one side of the street here, but not on the other side of the street there. That can be frustrating for customers. That can be frustrating for a wholesale ISP who's looking to market their services. We're trying to provide a more packaged solution.
Yeah. And just as a jargon buster, PIA, physical infrastructure access, which is Openreach's ducts and poles sharing service, just in case anyone didn't know what we're talking about there. Let's talk about the big consolidation. People have been talking about it a lot for quite some time, with not much happening. More recently, more has been happening. I had Dan Ramsey, CMO of City Fibre here quite recently. He predicted that we'll end up with all the altnets, about 100 of them, all consolidating down to a single big altnet. So there'll be the single big consolidation of all the jigsaw pieces. There'll be VMO2 and there'll be Openreach as the three infrastructure providers. That was his view. How do you see the market playing out in the UK in terms of altnets, and what do you think the end state might look like? Now, obviously, I'm asking you to look into the future, so caveat.
Yeah, I think, as you said, I think the discussion and the topic of consolidation is everywhere. I recently was at a conference just last week where this was the primary focus of the discussion. And like everyone is talking about, everyone knows that the market structure we have of over 100 altnets is not one that can survive. So there's going to be consolidation. To your point about what is the timing of that, my view is this is not going to happen in one fell swoop. It's going to be a multi-step, multi-phase, multi-year kind of process. And that process is going to be driven in part by where different altnets are in their debt restructuring requirements, in their financial obligations, to where their investors are. There's a psychological part to consolidation that is unraveling itself, which includes, acceptance of value and what you think this is worth versus what the market tells you it's worth given the context we're in today. And that is a process that I would argue is moving at some pace, but not particularly quickly. I also think there are stages where you're going to start seeing multiple altnets owned by the same owner consolidating. You've seen a bit of that already. You might then start seeing paper transactions where some different entities try to combine, no cash, because there's no cash around. And that might go some ways, although that's very difficult from a investor management governance perspective. So I think there are a few stages we're going to see as this unravels. In terms of the final analysis, the final assessment as to where does it end up, I think the view that all of the altnets will combine into one, and that the counterparties are VMO2 and Openreach, I think is misreading sort of, in my view anyway, of the structure. There's only one incumbent in the UK, right? And that's Openreach, who has the dominant share on infrastructure, right? The rest of the altnets and the altnet community, for the most part, are trying to conflate retail ISP and infrastructure owner And as I was saying earlier, those are two different businesses that have very different requirements for capital, different type of investors, I would argue. Frankly, different USPs, right? One is trying to build infrastructure and get scale. The other one is trying to get closer to customers and deliver to customers the experience, the service, and frankly, the innovative services that I think the future holds for us in terms of trying to drive with customers. And I think the first step in my thought process would be the market certainly needs infrastructure competition to Openreach. The reason the UK is in the state that it's in, which is one of the highest per user data rates, but the lowest fiber penetration, relative to Western markets, is because BT Openreach had a monopoly for so many years on copper, and they had no incentive to upgrade. So we need to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And what you need for that is a scaled competitor that can match that kind of scale, that kind of reach. And I think that the market probably can support, 1, 2 type of competitors in that space. People talk about altnets requiring 35% penetration or something like that. The truth is that the real answer is the infrastructure part probably requires a higher penetration, and the retail ISP part requires a lower penetration. So I think the real way the market structure should probably go is an infrastructure competition sort of structure against Openreach, and then incredibly innovative and competitive service providers that leverage those non-monopolistic sort of infrastructure owners. So I think that the altnets have to think about their business model and not just consolidation in place, where there are a mishmash of retail ISPs and a bunch of infrastructure that's tried to be brought together. So that's where I think it's a little bit different than just altnets against Openreach. I think it's a little bit of a different flavor.
So it's really interesting, that idea that a retail altnet versus a wholesale altnet are not necessarily going to fit together as well as two wholesale altnets, two retail altnets. Where will Nexfibre end up? Because Nexfibre's in this unusual sort of situation, I guess unique situation, where in my mind I'm thinking the natural end home for Nexfibre is probably with VMO2, because VMO2 is going to have these 17 million full fibre networks on as it upgrades its amalgamation of the cable TV networks. But then on the other hand, Nexfibre is an altnet and with a degree of independence. So there's another argument that says actually the route for Nexfibre is more with the other altnets, as with your Up acquisition. So a unique situation, I guess.
But I think my view is that Nexfibre is a standalone entity organization with its own vision, right? Let's remember, VMO2 is a partner of ours, but they're not a shareholder of ours. Yes, we have common parentage, we're siblings in a way, but there's actually no VMO2 ownership within Nexfibre. Yeah. So Nexfibre to me is in a great position, frankly, given our financial capability, given the fact that we have this partnership with a major player in the retail space. We are, in my view, in the best possible place to be a home for this altnet community and to drive that scale of full fiber that can leverage also the footprint that VMO2 is upgrading. So in many ways, we think we're sort of the fulcrum in this whole equation of how do we bring altnets together, find a home where they can be aggregated, and leverage the footprint that VMO2 is upgrading so that we can build a genuine national competitive threat to Openreach, keep their feet to the fire as things progress.
So you're looking more you're feeling more like an altnet than a bolt-on to VMO2, I guess.
Well, I mean, we don't normally talk ourselves like an altnet because in the UK, the altnet people think of a retail ISP in that context because so many of them are retail ISPs. But in terms of being an alternative network, which is the full form, yes, we think we are the platform on which the alternative network infrastructure can find a home. Okay. Not the retail ISP pieces, because I think that's a different business, but that the altnet infrastructure home platform.
Because Nexfibre is wholesale only.
We are wholesale only.
At the moment, you've got your anchor customer of VMO2. When can Zen or another ISP be a wholesale customer of Nexfibre? Because I understand you're not quite ready for us, but you might be soon.
It's a great question. So look, I think that from all perspectives, we're ready. And in fact, I've been quite surprised actually. Most of the conversations I've had with CEOs of other altnets even have included real interest in leveraging our footprint to expand their reach, which speaks to the fact that they're recognizing that maybe the retail part of their businesses needs more footprint to leverage. So we're in the process of having these discussions with a number of friendly parties as to how we can bring them onto the network. We've got a few IT sort of systems activities that are ongoing that we expect will be complete in the coming months that will allow us to actually physically bring customers onto the network. But the discussions on how we can leverage it, the right model to do that is happening now, and I look forward to doing that with you as well, Richard.
Yeah. But my understanding is at some point this year, we can rock up with a contract and a couple of Ethernet cables somewhere in London and say, we're good to go.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be London.
It doesn't have to be London.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Let's talk about the rural. I mean, it was great to understand the sort of semi-urban to semi-rural focus. What do you think the predicament is for those smaller, dedicated rural altnets? Because I've got sort of there's two schools of thought. There's one that says they are, because they're so niche and the build has been so difficult, they could actually stay independent for the foreseeable future, maybe. And certainly that was Sean Royce from Quickline Comms was keen on that sort of view. But there's another view where any small altnet, if it ends up particularly being overbuilt by Openreach, then they've got so much competition that they'll just never get their infrastructure investment back. So if we wind forward towards the end of the decade, do you think we'll see individual niche rural altnets, or do you think they'll all be swept up by the big machine, whatever that is?
Look, I think that generally speaking, it's unusual to have a 100% sweep kind of situation in any market. Will there be some small altnets that provide either incredible local knowledge and service that can't be matched by anyone else? I think that's entirely possible, but I think there will be the exception. I think the broad sort of view is that in order to get customers onto your footprint and on your network, you need that scale. It's amazing. We were talking earlier about ARPU, and you will find if you go to ISP Review, whatever, some of the rural players have the lowest promotional prices, which is a surprising move given that you would expect them to have that less competitive environment in a market, in a part of the market that is more expensive to build. So I think what you find is customers need a compelling reason to leverage these assets and this infrastructure. And part of that is driven by their need for bandwidth and speed. Part of that is driven by their view of brand and the full package of services and not just perhaps broadband in some contexts. So I think that's a pressure, a dynamic that is hard to yield to. But will there be pockets where some people will be able to find a way to make it work? Absolutely. I'm sure that'll be true.
Staying on the subject of rural, BDUK, Project Gigabit, is that something that is of interest to Nexfibre or not?
So we think there are parts of the BDUK project that are quite interesting. Unfortunately, because of the way Nexfibre was, or the timing of Nexfibre in terms of its creation, we were not able to sort of apply for some of the Type B contracts that have now been awarded and given to folks. We've let people know that to the extent, and there are some people who are dropping out, there are possible ways for us to still participate in that, and we look at those individually. But generally speaking, we think that it can be interesting. Part of our commercial build doesn't go too far away from some select BDUK sort of builds, so we think that they can be complementary. So yeah, I think there's an interest there. We sort of didn't meet the timing
Right.
on Type B, and Type C, of course, is so far afield and different. And I should point out that we're also kind of cautious. I don't think we have this bombastic view that, oh yeah, rural is just as easy as doing anything else. It's not. It's a very different type of build, and we go in with our eyes wide open as to what does that require, what skill sets, what experience, to make sure that we know what we're doing.
So you're keeping your options open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about funding. So obviously you've got £4.5 billion of funding to meet your 5 million rollout goal. And if you look in the altnet world and talk to some of the altnets, then a lot of them are feeling the pressure, particularly the ones that put the funding in place before the interest rates shot right up. And you know, that's really, you can see the pressure in those altnets. They've slowed down builds. Some of them have laid off people. Some of them have stopped builds altogether. Big focus on customer acquisition rather than more build. So Nexfibre, a younger altnet, but still with I think is it somewhat over 3 billion of debt and the rest in equity. Are you feeling the pressure? Or are you super chilled?
I don't think I'm supposed to be super chilled in my role, Richard.
Probably not.
Yeah. No, but I would say this. As you pointed out, we've gotten into the market with our eyes wide open. It is true that the financing was raised at a good time relative to where the market's moved. We have hedging. We have all of the financial sort of constructs around that debt that I think you would expect from any responsible party. But I think the key of what has caused distress or stress, whichever way you want to look at it, amongst the altnets is not just interest rates going up, which of course that's a factor. It's also the fact that there's a little bit of credibility issue around the pace at which they're getting customer connections and penetration relative to their plans. So what we focus on, frankly, is a couple of things. One, despite the fact that we've raised this debt and we have this equity and we have this financial firepower, is to have real discipline around our build. So we're very focused on how we're building, what our cost of build is, what the best use of that build capex could be, including where we're building. But the other thing that we're very, very focused on is penetration. And as I said previously, it's not just about hoping for market penetration, but also working with your customers. And we have VMO2 in that arena with us, and driving and ensuring that we're seeing that penetration is something that we have started with, as opposed to something that we've come to later. I think a very important aspect of making your business plan work is building quickly. Don't take 10 years to get to your 2 million or 3 million, whatever it is. Building quickly, but also getting penetration quickly. And we're trying to build very quickly. And I know I haven't given you numbers today, but we are building quickly, and you'll see that soon. But we're also focused on penetration coming up quickly, and that's where we're focused. Those are the things that we're focused on relative to ensuring that our financial picture remains strong.
A lot of altnets have been starting to float this idea that they're going to hit break even imminently this year. Can you share anything about time horizons for Nexfibre to get to break even?
So I don't know if I would say that we will be break even before we stop build.
Okay.
And that's pretty quick.
Yeah. So that's the end of 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we will likely hit break even before that period of time, and I think that's a little bit different than most of the others. Like I said, speed of build, speed of penetration to drive the numbers.
Okay. Last question. You've had a load of experience in the UK. You've had lots of experience in the US, and you've had lots of experience in India as well. So I'd be interested to hear the differences and maybe the similarities between building network in the UK, building network in the States, building network in India.
Yeah. I think in terms of building a network, I think the differences are not so much between UK and the US. It's more about the differences between building long haul, or what I would call intercity, and metro and access. Metro and access is more complicated by definition. There's just more that you need to get done. India is a totally different topic, requires like a whole different discussion in terms of the dynamic, although the headline remains true, right, in terms of what it takes to build in a city like Mumbai compared to building between cities. But I think if you look at the fundamentals of the industry and the market of what we do, not just the build piece of it, the fundamental drivers are the same. And that's what makes this such an appealing industry to be a part of, right? Data demand continues to confound everybody. It keeps going. It's been so many years where we talked about, 1 gig backbones being too big, and now no one even, every 1 gig to the home is not big enough apparently. So, the fundamental drivers of the marketplace continue to drive the investment cycle of fiber from when it was in the core of the network through the metro, now into access and into the home. And to me, that theme is true no matter where you are. And it speaks to the fundamental need for connectivity in the human experience and how it changes people's lives. And that's, at the end of the day, we're business people. We're trying to build a great network. We're also trying to do a good thing and the right thing by people. And we're all part of that ecosystem, in my view.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, what a great way to finish off. Rajiv, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you.